All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kabbalah Explained Simply. My name is Asaf, or Joseph, if you will. I'm broadcasting to you live from Israel. And in this next 45 minutes or so, we'll be discussing, as you can see, are you a spiritual seeker? We're going to get into that. Before that, I'll just mention that I have some help here behind the scenes, so I am able to catch your questions. If you have any question at any point, throw it into the chat uh, with a question mark, so it makes it easier for my friends behind the scenes to help me and collect all the questions for me, so that I can try to answer as many as possible. So yeah, and also it's always great to see who's connected and where from. I'm already seeing I'm already seeing a bunch of people from Pennsylvania. I'm gonna be there in 3 weeks. That is something like that. We have a great Kabbalah conference coming up. So I'll be there soon. We have some greetings from Sylvie from the Netherlands and Audrey from Mauritius. All right. Hey, Julie from Salt Lake City, Utah, and some more and more friends from the Netherlands and Denmark and New Jersey and North Carolina and Miami and others. All right. So let's start. Are you a spiritual seeker? Kabbalah Explained Simply. We'll start right after this intro. Are you a spiritual seeker? That's what we're going to get into today. And we will try to understand, what does it even mean to be a spiritual seeker? What does that term really mean? What do you seek as a spiritual seeker? Spirituality. Okay, what is that? Can anyone be a spiritual seeker? How do you know if you are one? And how does a spiritual seeker actually seek? All right, so in this session, I'll try to give you Kabbalah's perspective on what does it mean to be a spiritual seeker, and also a little bit maybe about the spiritual physics behind it, so to speak. How does it actually fall into place with the deeper structure of reality? We'll get there, hopefully. So I'll start with this. This is a quote from my teacher, Kabbalist Dr. Michael Leitman. This is something he said a long time ago. And if you, I highlighted some important points here in this quote. We're going to break it down, and it'll help us answer some questions that we brought up earlier. But what's mostly important before we get into all of that is that when Kabbalah talks about spiritual seekers, when it talks about the desire for spiritual attainment, or the desire for the revelation of spirituality, the desire for something beyond this world, it refers to a desire that actually exists in most people, in all people, I'm sorry, but it's unconscious in most of them. So we call this in Kabbalah, this unique desire, a point in the heart, or the point in the heart. And that's because the heart in Kabbalah represents all of our desires. And the desire for spirituality is unique in that landscape. And we're going to understand why. But we call it a point inside the person's heart that yearns for something above, beyond this world. All right, so with that short introduction, let's get into the quote. So, my teacher said this: when a point in the heart awakens in the person, and they begin to ask about the meaning of their life, Why am I living? For what purpose? What is the reason? What should be the outcome of my life? It all stems from this point in the heart that demands adhesion to the root. We'll clarify what that is later on. Even though the person is not aware of it. So let's go deeper into this, right? So when this unique desire awakens in a person, and as I said, from a Kabbalistic perspective, this is a desire that exists in all people. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you are, it doesn't matter your background, your language, your mentality, where you grew up, your professional background. It doesn't matter at all. If you are a human being, then this is a desire that exists in you. The need to know and discover the meaning and purpose of life, it's something that exists in the human being. However, it is dormant, latent, hidden, and unconscious in most people. And when it awakens, a person begins to ask themselves, what am I doing here? What is going on here? Where am I? And mostly what for? What's the purpose and meaning behind everything that exists in the reality before me? And where is it headed? Where is it going? So that's the kind of questions that a person finds themselves asking if that point in the heart awakens in them. However, this point in the heart can show itself in various forms, in many different ways, possibly before the person even identifies what it actually is. Sometimes people feel just some sort of dissatisfaction. It's not necessarily that everything goes south in their lives, not at all. On the face of it, on the surface, they might be having a very decent, good kind of life, having everything they need in terms of maybe having a career, maybe even a family, something they like to do, hobbies they love, and maybe even their sports team they're rooting for just one or something like that. I'm trying to say that it doesn't necessarily mean that one's life is bad. It could be. That's another case. We'll talk about that too. But essentially, a person might just feel like they have pretty much what they need, and even more, and yet they're dissatisfied. They're not happy. They're not completely whole and at peace with themselves. Something's missing. It's like nothing fulfills me. And again, it's not necessarily that people are experiencing actual suffering. It's just this sort of void, this sort of emptiness. And that's one way in which this point in the heart might awaken before the person is conscious of it. All right? It can also be a situation where a person goes through something really terrible in life, something tragic, something that, a life-changing event that could be very tragic, very difficult, but it makes them ask, what's it all for? It makes them ask, is there a reason? Is there a purpose for this whole thing that just happened to me? So it could happen that way as well, but it means that in addition to the actual suffering and the actual tragedy, what surfaces is another desire, another question about the purpose of the suffering. So it's not just, I feel bad, I'm suffering, can I feel better? It's why is this whole thing happening to begin with? Is there a worthy purpose for this? And sometimes people attribute it directly to some higher force, upper force, God, the creator, doesn't matter how you call it. But if he exists, if some sort of God exists, then how could it be that I've been dealt with such a such a bad tragic event? So it could happen in some way like that, as long as what surfaces, in addition to the actual suffering, is a question about the purpose of the suffering. But it can also just be curiosity. There are many people who find themselves just not happy with any explanation of how the world works, of how reality works. They feel like there has to be something beyond the material, something that is not explained in our ordinary materialist, material science even. Something is not, somehow we're not able to grasp what all that reality has to offer. That could be some form of curiosity that actually is an awakening of the point in the heart. A person might find themselves searching for alternative truths. Maybe they will dabble in conspiracy theories of all kinds of things. Of course, some conspiracy theories are not conspiracies at all. They're just truths that are spoken not by mainstream voices. I'm not saying that doesn't exist either, but that kind of curiosity could very well characterize a person who's on his way to ask about the purpose of it all, the meaning behind life, not just how the world works or who's pulling the main strings behind the money and power structures of this world, but actually about the nature of reality. It could also be someone who's really interested in science, looking into that nature of reality question, or esoteric stuff that's also trying to offer some alternative explanations about the nature of reality. So there are many different ways that the point in the heart, this desire for a higher level of reality or a deeper level of reality, there are different ways, different forms in which it appears and manifests in human beings. And curiosity is another one of them. And let's go back to the quote for a second. So it all stems from this point in the heart. All these questions stem from the point in the heart that demands adhesion with the Creator, adhesion to the root, it says here in the quote. So I'll stick to this terminology, try to explain that. What does it mean, adhesion to the root? The point in the heart, it demands some connection to a higher or a deeper layer of reality. And we need to understand this in a much bigger way, much deeper way, and we'll do that in just a moment. But this is, for now, let's just put this clearly on the table. If a person truly has a desire that we call in Kabbalah the point in the heart, even though it hides itself in many different ways and forms as we just discussed, if it is ultimately a true point in the heart, that person will ask about the meaning and purpose of life itself. And what they're actually asking about, unknowingly, it's a demand, it's a deep-seated demand for a reconnection, a very deep, profound kind of connection that we refer to as adhesion in Kabbalah, with the root of reality, with the point of origin, from where that point in the heart actually came from. We'll get to that a little bit later on. And just to finish the quote, even though the person is not aware of it, as we have already said, the person might not be aware at all that this process is now happening in them. They may just feel curious about reality, or empty in life, or triggered by life's events to ask about what's next, what's the purpose. And so as that desire develops, a person learns more and more what that desire is. And the question that I want to solve now is, where does this desire actually come from? What is this desire? How does Kabbalah explain the awakening of this desire and its origin and where it's pushing us? Where to, right? So let's read this. Another quote from my teacher, Kabbalist Dr. Lightman. He said this: all the actions one needs to do with this point in the heart is to expand it into a complete vessel. I'll explain all these words in just 1 second. It is the quality of Bina inside the person. That's a very technical Kabbalistic term, Bina, a very important one, and we'll discuss that too. Let's just read the whole thing for now. It is the quality of Bina inside the person coming from the shattering of the vessels and demands correction. Okay, so before we go to the physics of it, or the mechanics of it, if you will, essentially what we are learning here is that the desire that we call a point in the heart, this awakening towards spirituality, this awakening towards the meaning and purpose of life, it's a desire inside of you that longs for a deeper level of reality, because that's where it comes from. Again, there's a desire within you that you can feel while you're living in this world, while you're not perceiving more than what your five senses show you, this material reality, and you feel and think of yourself as a physical body that lives and dies, and that's how you experience reality. And yet, there's a desire within you that comes from a deeper level of reality. And that's why it longs for that deeper level of reality, because that is its origin. That's where it came from. In other words, it is a manifestation inside the created being, that is you, of a quality that's actually upper to the created being. I'll say this again in simpler words. Inside of us, there is something that comes from a deeper level of reality, an upper, higher level of reality, meaning a level of reality that is the source of ours. We as if live on a level of outcomes, consequences, or branches, as Kabbalists call that. And the world we're talking about, the layer of reality that we're talking about, is a layer of reasons, of causes. And that causal level of reality is hidden from us, but it's the source of everything that happens in our world, in our experience. All right, we'll keep going. I'll just remind you all that you're all welcome to send your questions if you have any, and I'll do my best to answer questions in a little bit. So back to this quote, which was slightly more mentioned, this term called Bina, and we want to see where it fits. Let's read it again. All the actions one needs to do with this point in the heart is to expand it into a complete vessel. So we have a point. If you're a spiritual seeker, it means you have that awakening of the point in the heart. If you're already conscious of it, then you might identify with the term seeker, because you feel that this point within you seeks the upper reality. That is the thing that you're seeking. We call that, we might call that spirituality. We might call that the upper world, the spiritual world, a deeper reality. And we'll soon better characterize it than just give it names. But essentially, we are seeking that reality if we have an awakened point in the heart, okay? And what we need to do with it, my teacher says here, is to expand it to a complete vessel, meaning that our spiritual development is about taking that little point of desire and growing it, developing it, expanding it to the point that it can hold an experience of the spiritual reality. That's what we call a vessel. It's not any physical vessel, of course, it's an emotional vessel. It's a spiritual vessel that is built from a very tiny point of desire. It expands and grows and develops until it's a vessel that can actually experience within it the spiritual reality. It is the quality of Bina, I'm continuing in the quote, it is the quality of Bina inside the person coming from the shattering of the vessels and demands correction. All right. We're going to have to maybe use the drawing board here to make this a little clearer. So, yeah, let's give it a shot. So, let's just see. Okay. All right. So, what is it that we are that we just talked about? The quality of Bina inside the person. Kabbalah explains reality itself exists in a state of oneness. And let's just imagine this kind of circle here or ellipse as that state of complete fulfillment, complete abundance, and everything is one. And that is the root of reality, where everything connects as one. Now, we exist on a level where we feel that everything is separate. We feel ourselves as 1 out of 7 billion people. We feel trapped, if you will, in a body separate from all the other bodies. And there's not just other people, there's also the still vegetative and animate levels of nature. There's me and the rest of nature, me and all the other people, me and the rest of reality. And that's how we experience life, as many separate pieces. What Kabbalah tells us here is that we are actually in the same state right now. It's just that we're unable to feel it. Meaning, maybe I'll use another color here. So it's like this. Let me do it differently. So this, yeah, let's do it like this. So this state, this upper state, so to speak, and the lower state, it's not a different place. It's not a different physical space and time where it happens. It is rather a state of perception. And at the moment, we feel it like this. We feel it like this. Let me actually just call it this world. We feel that we are here, but if we change our perception, if we're able to experience reality differently, we will feel here, what we call the upper world. So what's the difference? The difference is our experience. And what we have within us here is an experience of the physical reality. You can't see my mouse, can you? Right. So let me try. Yeah. So in the upper world, yeah, that the words should be enough. In the lower world, in this world, in the experience that we have here, we feel as separate individuals, even though we're all connected on a deeper layer of reality that we call the upper world. And the quality that we have within us that makes us ask about the spiritual reality, that point in the heart that we have within us, actually comes from here, from the upper world, from the connected state, corrected state, oneness, the state of oneness of reality, where everything is connected and everything is one, and everything is filled with eternal bliss, if you will. From that state, there is a point that within us that longs for that state because it came from there. What does it mean that it came from there? We went through a state called the shattering of the vessels. You know what? If I use this mouse here, you should see better. How's this? Yeah, now you can see my green cursor. Great. So when we came from here to here, then we went through a process called the shattering of the vessels. We can't go into this in a lot of detail right now, because that's a whole session in itself. But what's important is that this quality of Bina, which is also referred to as the quality of bestowal, the quality of oneness, the quality of complete and total connection, that we don't have any sense of it at the moment, but through this shattering of the vessel, which is what led to our corporeal sensation and experience of the world, through that quality of oneness was able to permeate the created being. The will to receive, that's the nature of the created being, was permeated by this quality of Bina. Now, that quality of Bina is very, very hidden, very tiny. It guides our spiritual development without us knowing. That's what's important to understand. And it develops within us, and we're unaware of it. And that's why it appears in the form of question marks. What's the purpose of this place? What's the purpose of this world? Why are we in this experience? Where is it all headed? Where is it all going? What's my purpose in life? It's actually the same as asking, what's my connection to the rest of reality? If you really think deep about it, what does it mean when you ask, what's my purpose in life? What's the meaning of my life? You're actually asking, what is my purpose in relation to the rest of reality? In other words, what's my connection with the rest of reality? That is the other side of that question about meaning and purpose of life. And so the quality of Bina is the quality of connection that was in control, in that it is in control in this upper state of reality. But after the shattering of the vessels, those shattered vessels, which is us, human beings, we are all results of that shattering. We carry within us a broken part, a tiny broken part of Bina. And that essentially becomes our desire for spirituality. All right? So essentially, maybe this slide will help us also. Essentially, we're all connected already right now. We're still connected, but it's at a deeper level of experience, at a deeper level of reality. So we are connected, yet we feel isolated. We are connected beyond our perception. What we feel right now is this illusory perception where we feel separate entities. We feel like we're separate entities living in individual bodies. And that is our experience of the world. But Kabbalah explains this is a perception. It's not the actual reality. And you know what's interesting? Even though we cannot experience directly what the Kabbalists are saying without first developing our vessel to experience what they experience, it's quite remarkable that in our world, the more we advance in science and the research of nature and how it works, we actually begin to see this picture intellectually, though, without a direct experience. But intellectually, we begin to see very clearly that everything is connected. It's very, very clear that all of reality is one. And I'm not going to go into that in a lot of detail as well, because we've done actually countless lectures on this. There's phenomenal research. If you put together findings from physics and biology and neuroscience and chemistry and other things, it becomes, especially from the last century, it becomes very clear that we human beings and the rest of nature were all connected in ways beyond our immediate experience. I mean, the simplest, not simple actually, but a very direct, obvious, the most obvious example for it is perhaps the Nobel Prize in Physics that was given to three physicists in 2022, I believe, for experimentally proving that quantum entanglement is real. Essentially, in simple words, it means that if particles are entangled, which means they have a special connection between them, then the state of one influences the state of other, even if they are light years away. There could be a particle here on Earth and a particle on a different galaxy, and when you change one, you instantly change the other, as if breaking the speed of life, as if they were never separated. Things that we still don't know how to clearly come to grips with scientifically and how to explain them, and yet we know they're real, we know they're a fact of reality. And so that's just one example. There are many, many phenomenal examples when it comes to human connection and how we are connected to each other in ways that we don't understand. But Kabbalah says these are just symptoms. These are symptoms that we see here. If we go back to this not so beautiful drawing that I did, but I think it's still clear to understand. What we're seeing here, what we experience here when we find all these connections in nature and between humans and science, we're actually just touching on the symptoms. These are just superficial hints, Kabbalists explain. These are material imprints, material results, branches of the deeper spiritual reality where we are totally connected to the point that we are just one. How is that possible? Well, I think that the study of Kabbalah gradually develops in you the ability to understand how that's possible, and if you work on it with the right group of people, you can begin to sense what that means. Also, the point is that we're talking about a reality where every person includes all of the world inside themselves. That's also the reason why we experience an external world, all the other people outside of me, everything that's happening in humanity, including the climate, including the animals, including the vegetative and the entire cosmos. If we saw things from a spiritual perspective, we would see all of that exists within us. We're not separate from it. We are not little things living in a huge, vast cosmos. Rather, we are that entire creation, and everything in creation is a part of us, and creation is integral. It means that every part and the particular and the collective are equal. That is something that we could see some examples to it from, say, fractals, for instance, in nature, can kind of give you a hint of how the whole can be included in every part. But to really experience it, that's only through spiritual development, spiritual attainment. And so in our world, we see all kinds of hints. Oh, wow, we have mirror neurons, and they affect each other, and somehow my brain simulates someone else's action when I encounter it. I go through it myself in potential. There's all kinds of things that we find in science that are remarkable and interesting, but they're actually just hints at the total connection that exists at the bottom of reality. All right, I will go to questions soon, so bear with me here. If you want to ask the questions, let's do maybe one more quote. So this is another one from my teacher, Kabbalist Michael Lightman. Because the upper light shines from afar and is related to it meaning the point in the heart, this spark, called the point in the heart, yearns to return to its source. We need to explain what is the upper light that Dr. Lightman refers to here, and we'll give some basic explanation for it. And this is what awakens in a person a deficiency, to return to the root. When we say deficiency in Kabbalah, we mean a lack, a need, a desire that needs to be fulfilled. So even without understanding what's upper light, we'll get there in a second, what we hear here is that there is some force, we call it upper light, and it shines from afar. What does it mean from afar? We're not talking about physical distances. This isn't geometry here, right? This is spirituality. So we're talking about being far from our awareness, far from our perception, far from our experience. So there's a force that is related to our point in the heart, and it comes from that connected state of reality. And it's acting on our spark, our point in the heart, and it makes it develop a desire to come back to the connected state, to come back to the root. And that's what awakens in a person the desire to ask, what's going on here? What's the meaning of this all? Is there a spiritual level of reality? I think I'm looking for one. In other words, what you might call a spiritual seeker. So I'll further explain this in a bit, but let's see first what's up with some questions. All right. So Audrey was asking, does it apply to everyone, or some may never ask themselves about it, thus reincarnate again and again? Okay, so I kind of answered it, but you're right. There's more to say about this. The point of the heart ultimately exists in every person. If you're a human being, it exists in you. And what's the basis for that? The spiritual physics of the shattering of the vessels. I won't go into this with a lot of detail right now for lack of time, but as we've covered briefly, we are all one vessel. We are actually one creation. All human beings and all of nature, put all of it together, that's one created being, one creation, one vessel that is destined to hold, to receive the light that created it. The abundance created the lack. That's what Kabbalah explains to us. All right? The abundance is called existence from existence, and the lack, the desire to receive the abundance, is called existence from absence, meaning the only thing that was created is actually a desire to receive. We're all parts of it, and when we were shattered, the point of Bina entered all of the pieces. That was the purpose of the shattering, to create this mingling between the quality of the light, the quality of the creator, if you will, the quality of complete bestowal, and the quality of the created being, the quality of reception, the desire to receive. So in that way, through that event, let's call it, spiritual event called the shattering of the vessels, the quality of Bina entered the will to receive, mingled with it completely. And that's why in every human being, ultimately, there is a point of Bina, there is a point in the heart that is developing, but it's a big question at what stage it will develop. it develops in a small number of people at first, and then there's an exponential development when there's a stage where the masses need to awaken towards spirituality. Um, and um, and yes, a person sometimes many times needs to reincarnate again and again, until that point develops in a conscious way. Here's another question from Miranda. All right, this one is a bit more general, but you're welcome to ask general questions as well in this session. So Miranda is asking, can you study if you are not of any particular faith? So first of all, Kabbalah is not a faith. It's not a belief system. It's not religion. It's also not mysticism. Of course, there's all kinds of interpretations, but the classic interpretations, they don't fit. Kabbalah is a science about the upper world. It's a science about spiritual discovery, spiritual attainment. It's a science about our connection to the rest of reality. Essentially, what does it teach us? It teaches us how we are connected to all of reality and how to find and develop the experience of that connection. That's what Kabbalah is all about. In technical terms, Kabbalah is about how to develop the broken part of Bina inside the Malchut, inside the quality of the created being. That's essentially what Kabbalah is. Where does it come from? It comes from experience of people who have asked the question that we're all asking if we're here. What's the point in life? What's the meaning of life? What's the purpose of it all, right? And they had that question as well, and they didn't let it go. They didn't let it drown in the currents of life and just, disappear between one Netflix show to another, so to speak, right? You get the idea. They were very much concerned about this question. It didn't let them sleep. It was relentless in them, and they dedicated their entire lives to developing that desire. And they discovered that when you put the focus on this desire, and again, it has nothing to do with religion or beliefs or mysticism or anything like that. When you just begin to make that desire for the purpose of life important to you, and you begin to try to mess with it inside of you, not let it go, just not let go of it, then over time it develops, and what they've discovered is there is a natural process by which it develops. There's a map that they've laid out from their experience. And that map of how the desire for spirituality develops is called the wisdom of Kabbalah. All right? So Kabbalah is an empirical wisdom that comes from direct experience. That's what Kabbalah. It's not about believing in something or just following some religious customs. Therefore, there's no problem if you follow religious customs also. We have students in KabU, which is our learning center in English. We have students from all over the world, all walks of life, all religions, and non-religious people. And it's not an issue because they find a universal point of connection to this wisdom that can come from any direction they've been brought up to or they come from. We actually have a global Kabbalah conference happening in just a few weeks. I'll be traveling to Pennsylvania for it. It'll be happening simultaneously in a few centers in the world. So thousands of people are going to be connected to that. And so I hope that answers your question, Miranda. You can study, doesn't matter. You can study Kabbalah, doesn't matter where you come from or what you follow or don't follow. Okay. Endless Moments is asking, born again and again, meaning reincarnation. Okay, reincarnation is a whole huge topic. I don't like the word reincarnation, I gotta say. because it's been tainted with all kinds of you know weird things. So it's easy to hear that word and immediately think about some things that are unrealistic. Reincarnation doesn't work in the way we think, that there is some soul that dresses into a material body. That is just the common conception about the common idea about reincarnation that we saw in movies, right? Or that we kind of have it stuck in our minds. We don't even know where from. Is that there is some soul, a spiritual thing that dresses into the body and that gives life to the body, right? And when it goes away, the body dies. And that's not how it works. All of this reality is false. All of this reality is a perception. All of this reality is illusory. We are not seeing reality. We are seeing our experience of reality. The actual reality, if we don't experience it, we don't experience it. And then we think we are a body that lives and dies for some amount of time, because our whole existence is within time and space. But if you rise to a deeper level of reality, where it's that includes within it all of time and all of space, then what you begin to identify with is not the body, but rather the eternal entity that exists, and that is the soul. We are non-material beings that are having a material-like experience. And it's not that there's a spirit that dresses into the body and so forth. But in our development as souls, as non-material entities, we go through the experience called this world because that's the baseline, the lowest level from where we begin our conscious experience. And it works in such a way where we go through it more than once. And so we might call that reincarnation, but we need to properly define what that means. I'm going to have to conclude soon, so I'm not going to get too deep into what is the upper light. But let me just give you a quick kind of summary. Then maybe we'll still have time to take one more question or so. And after that, I'll be doing an exclusive Q&A session for the KabU students. So even though it's for the KabU students, it's on Zoom. Everyone can participate. Even if you're not a KabU member yet, you can just start a membership. There's a free trial, and you can check out everything on KabU and see if that fits you. We have courses and a really complete study program. And of course, you'll be connected to an environment of other spiritual seekers, other students, and there's a whole world in there. So if you're interested, I think you'll be able to find, there's already a link in the chat, so you can absolutely join that Q&A and ask more questions there. It'll happen shortly after I finish this broadcast. 2-3 minutes afterwards, I'll be there on the Zoom. So there's a link in the chat. All right. So here's the what I wanted to say about this concept, this term called the upper light. So we'll use this diagram that I did a couple of minutes ago. So there's actually just one state in reality, and that is this final state of reality. On the way to the final state, we go through a development. We change our perception. We develop our vessels of experience. All right? And that's what I tried to show with these dotted red lines here, that it's like steps, steps of perception until we come to the perception of wholeness and oneness and eternity. And so the upper light, when we say that, we mean the light that fulfills everything, all of reality, in the upper state. And because that's the true state of reality, we, the created beings, even after the shattering of the vessels, when we are here experiencing this world, that force from the purpose of creation, called the light or the upper light, pulls us. It constantly attracts us to gradually, very, 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 very gradually rise to that state. That force is actually the force behind all of development. Everything that we see that's developing in this world, all of life, nature, the physics of the world, all the motion and movement and evolution, everything that's happening is why there's development at all is because there is a force that works on the created beings to gradually lift them, raise them, elevate them to a higher state of reality. Kabbalah essentially is just a method of how to make us ourselves more sensitive to the influence of that light. How to, as if, draw the light more intentionally rather than just letting it work on us bit by bit by bit for millions of years. That essentially is the method of Kabbalah. How to intentionally be affected by this upper light. And we do that by trying to climb towards it on our own. And when we do that, the light influences us more. It's not changing. It's the same light. The light never changes. That light is actually at complete rest. But when we change ourselves towards it, you can think about it like solar panels, right? So the sun doesn't change, it just continues to emit light. But if you tilt the solar panel towards the sun, you get the energy. You can have the same solar panel tilted the other way, and it's not going to get anything, right? So that essentially what Kabbalah helps us do. Understand how to develop our point in the heart and direct it towards its root so that we intentionally draw the upper light upon us. That, in essence, is the whole method of Kabbalah. All right. I see that there's a bunch more questions. I'll have to take some of the questions to the Zoom session. We will start there in just a minute or two. Hopefully you can join it if you're not a Kabu member already and you want your questions answered now. Then you can just join the Zoom. I'll also say that if you're new here by any chance, then every week here there is a session where some Kabu instructor, one of our Kabu instructors, will come here and give a session, a free lecture like this about some topic in the wisdom of Kabbalah. So you're welcome to join Kabbalah Explained Simply every Sunday. And I'll see the Kabu members and those who will join now, hopefully. I'll see you soon on Zoom in just 2 minutes or so. All right, so thank you everyone for being here. I appreciate your desire for spirituality, and I hope for all of us to develop it in the best, most efficient, and most adventurous way possible. Thank you everyone, and all the best.